Welcome back to Tiny House and Off-Grid Resources, everyone. Land Rover, eh? Worth watching twice. I'm heading up into the hills to go camping overnight so that I can show you a couple of things that I've made recently. I'm dying to show someone this new hammock that I've made, which costs absolutely nothing. You can make it out of stuff that you've got lying around at home, and in my opinion it's better than any hammock that I've found in the shops. And we're going to cook dinner on my little rocket stove, which is something I always enjoy doing. The rocket stove's almost like a pet. It's like having a wee animal that you have to feed. So trundling up to the back of John's place, the farm tracks are fairly usable, but by the time you get to about here, things get challenging. Listen to that. Traction problems. Of course, it's so dry that the gravel isn't bedding into the mud underneath like it did last time I came up here. Last time I came up here it was midwinter and it was very, very wet and hard to get around. But I'll click the hubs in when I get up to this next flat bit, and that will make quite a difference. Clicking the hubs in is one more thing that you have to do on an older four-wheel drive to get it driving it properly in four-wheel drive. Whoa, sunstrike. It's late in the afternoon, it's about 6 o'clock, 6 p.m, and so the sun's real low in the sky. The whole idea of coming up here is to enjoy solstice and sunrise the next morning, because from memory I think that this camping spot faces east, and so I'll get the rising sun, which will be really nice to welcome in the new solstice. So, I'm about halfway up now. The view's quite grand even from here, but we've got a long way to go yet. So now, clicking in these hubs, as I say, there's a lot of business going on in the front end of a four-wheel drive that, when you're driving on the highway, is turning unnecessarily, and that's gobbling up horsepower and fuel. So most four-wheel drives have what they call freewheeling hubs. You can just click them in and click them out. Sometimes it's done from inside electronically, but on older ones they're manual hubs. You have to get in and engage them and disengage them, but it makes the world of difference. Here we go, up the nasty part of the track in four-wheel drive, but this is nothing yet. Just around this corner there's a washed out piece that I've got to go through, so that'll be both hands on the steering wheel and no filming. This is the skidder site. It's when this mountain was logged for pine. The machinery was all parked here and all the processing of the logs was done at this point, and it's here that they were loaded onto the trucks for transport to the ports and export. And up here is the second gnarly bit. Just get myself lined up and away we go. I really do wish I had a bit of an accomplice at times like this, because this is quite dramatic four-wheel driving. If I had a camera outside, this would be mightily impressive, seeing this beast claw its way up the mountain. All the stuff growing at the side of the tracks is incredibly spiky. It's gorse, which the people brought out from England when they came, and they intended to use it for hedging here in New Zealand, but in this climate it went rampant, and now we have the stuff everywhere. It's a real problem. Right, we're nearly there. It's about another 300 or 400 metres to the top. There we go, up by those pine trees. That's the ridge at the top of the hill. Right, I'll have to clear my throat to do my best Australian accent so that I can describe what we've got here. Can you feel the serenity? Now, what movie was that from? Answers on the back of a postcard. Right, first job is empty out the camping gear. It's about 7 o'clock in the evening. I've only got a couple of hours till it gets dark, so I want to make the most of it. And the reason I brought you up here, apart from to celebrate Solstice with me, was to show you two things that I've made recently that I've had a bit of fun with. The first is my homemade hammock. Now, don't go buying a hammock, because this homemade tried and tested one is actually better than any hammock that I've tried in the shops. And it's made from a pine tree and the back end of my Land Rover, and the hammock itself is made from a bedsheet, a blanket, 2 motorcycle tie downs, and a couple of bungee straps. So here's what you do to make yourself a no-cost hammock. First thing you have to do is lasso a pine tree. Choose a slow-moving one. The ones at the back of the pack are usually the ones that are a little bit sick and slower moving, and they're easier to catch. Put your tie down nice and high up. About the 6-foot mark is a good starting point. Your 2 trees, or your tree and your Land Rover, need to be about 4 metres, 12 feet apart. And of course your vehicle needs to be relatively tall so that you can get the hang right. I'm just putting a tree saver around the sharp edges of my roof rack. A tree saver is a broad strap that you put around trees when you're winching off them so that you don't debark them, pulling your Land Rover out of mud holes. And the motorcycle tie downs, the reason I'm using those is because, of course, webbing's very strong. But motorcycle tie downs have this clever little cam lock buckle that allows for quick and easy adjustment to get the height of your hammock exactly how you like it. Because a hammock's not just for sleeping in. You can run it a little closer to the ground, and it's a very comfortable seat during the day, and then you might just crank it up a little on one end in the evenings. A single sheet does the job nicely, but I'm using a double folded in half, so mine's 2 layers thick. And it's a simple job then to just scrunch up one end, get it tightened up as much as you can, and then form a loop in the end of your tie down like you would with a rubber band if you're putting a rubber band in somebody's hair, or like a hair tie. Loop that around and pull tight, and that's one end. Then run your hands along the sheet so that you're pulling the sheet evenly and you don't leave any behind, so that you get a nice even sausage. You want the middle and the 2 outer edges all to have the same tension on them. And then you do the same again. Form a loop, put the end of the sheet through, pull it tight, and then give a tug on it to make sure that it's as tight as it can be. That's your basic hammock, simple as that. It's ready to sleep in on a warm summer's night. But because it gets a little bit chilly at higher elevations, I'm going to be running an under blanket. And an under blanket is a great idea that I saw other people do. And how that works is a nice woolen blanket gets tied up in a similar way on a separate set of strings, but the whole end of the blanket isn't gathered together. Now here we go. There you go. So easy to adjust the height. Way too high for getting in and out of. So I'll let the toe end down because I've decided which end is going to be my head end and which end will be my toe end. So that's now all set and ready to go. Let me get back to this blanket. The blanket's tied at 3 points on either end, the 2 corners and the middle, using the same system. You just pinch the fabric in your hand, loop the webbing tie downs or the pieces of cord that you might be using around it, and run those up to the mounting point. You can tie them on, but what I do is I use a 12-inch 300mm stretchy cord, and that bungee cord puts a little bit of spring into the under blanket, and that means I can slip a duvet, what do you guys call duvet? Quilts, you know, a bed quilt. You can put a bed quilt on the blanket underneath your hammock, and what that does is it gives you a lovely warm insulation pad underneath that's not compressed by your body weight, so it remains fully lofted and it gives much better insulation underneath you. Once you're lying in the hammock, you can adjust it, pull it up, pull it down, get it around your kidneys or bring it down by your feet, whatever works for you. So that's your cool hammock and your warm hammock. Next thing we've got to organise is a dry hammock. What I've got here is a camo nylon ripstop tarp, a fly that I made several years ago, and when I made it I put the eyelets around the edge in a special configuration, so I've got an even number on one side and an odd number on the other, and that makes it much easier to utilize in different setups, because sometimes this thing's a floor, sometimes it's a roof, sometimes it's just a wind shelter. It gets used for all sorts of things, and having the eyelets in different places means it's easy for me to create different types of shelter with it. So I'll anchor that at either end and pull it tight, and then peg it to the ground at the back. I'm going to need a pole. I didn't bring any because I knew there'd be plenty up here. Oh, okay, not that one. I like to cut standing dead wood, but that one was just a little bit too dead. So I'll cut this one next to it, which ain't quite so dead. I'll just knock off the extra branches, and then I'll trim it to length using this drywall hatchet that I found at a hardware store. This isn't actually a camping or a woodman's axe or anything like that. It's designed for drywall contractors. It's for working with jib, and it has a hammer on one end and an axe on the other, and they use it for scoring and cutting jib and also knocking clouts in and things like that, and they're dirt cheap and you can find them at any hardware store. They are awesome as a camping hatchet, lightweight and cheap, like me, except for the lightweight bit. So now I get the chance to show you my homemade knife as well. This knife I made in a previous episode about 3 weeks ago using a 1955 Morris Minor car leaf spring. Car leaf springs are incredibly good high quality steel, perfect for a knife, but they're generally just a little bit too thick and heavy. But the type of knife that I wanted was what they call a bushcraft knife. These things are part way to being an axe. I've already got skinning knives and hunting knives, filleting knives, but I don't have something that I can use for making projects with in the bush. So this was great fun to make. You can watch that video up here. I'll put a link above me now. And I'll just get the end of it whittled down a little so that I can pass it through the eyelet and I can complete the shelter. Now, the other reason why I wanted you up here with me tonight was so that I could show you my rocket stove. I've got an abundance of stoves at home, and I could have brought up pretty much any stove that I wanted to, but this is like having a pet dragon. It really is. It's a cooking device that you can relate to. It's a little shy. It doesn't always want to come out of its bag because, hey, I made the bag and I made it out of a bit that wasn't quite big enough. So as you can see, I've made it out of an old gas bottle. Gas bottles at the 10-year mark become unable to be reused. I brought my own tinder with me, because you know how hard it is to get a date up in the hills. Now, the reason I bring my own tinder with me is because it takes up so little space, and it's good to have something that's bone dry, so no matter what weather you're in, you know you can get your fire started. What I'm going to start by doing is dropping a handful of tinder down the chimney so that it lies inside the belly of the beast, and then I'm going to get some small twigs about the size of pencils. These small twigs go down the chimney, and they're the first thing that gets lit after the tinder. They'll preheat the thing, get it up to temperature, and give me a bed of embers for me to start working with. I'll poke those down there, and I'm going to use my a bit of tinder just for good measure, and I'm going to use my spark stick, which is a magnesium and something else mix. It's quite hard, and that produces a shower of sparks when you strike it hard. What I'm doing here is creating a little pile of magnesium shavings that I can mix into the tinder with my finger, and then when I give it a strike, the tinder will just burst into flames. It burns very, very hot. There you go, one strike does it. I'll just wait till that gets started, and then you just carefully poke the tinder up its bum, and it starts to heat the rest of it, and within moments you've got a roaring fire. Now that the tinder and the pencil-sized sticks have caught and are burning well, it's time for me to select the ones that are going to get used for the actual cooking. Those sticks need to be about as thick as your finger. As thick as your thumb is about the maximum you'd ever go to. Let me show you what makes a rocket stove rockety. It's this business underneath. It's the air intake. The feed chute is half and half air and fuel. The sticks go in the top, the air goes in underneath them, and that means you've got a blast of air that's being pulled up the chimney past the ends of those sticks all the time. So that means you can control the burn. You slide the sticks in for a hotter burn, you slide the sticks out for a cooler burn. Perfect for cooking. This particular one, because they get so very, very hot, I've made this one inside the gas bottle, so the gas bottle provides a case and it is packed with insulation inside. The insulation is called perlite, and that's granules, and it means that the outside is cool to the touch, but it keeps the chimney as hot as hell, and that hot chimney burns all the gases, so it means once it's up to temperature, no smoke. If you'd like to see how to make your own rocket stove, just make a comment down below, and if I get enough comments, I'll do a video on making a rocket stove. One of the simplest ones, and then I'll show you some tricks that you can do to it that make it a little better. I've selected about 8 or 10 finger sized sticks, and that'll be enough to get this boiling. The pile of sticks that I've got sitting next to it is way bigger than I need. So we're going to boil some water, get some brown rice on the go, which will take about 10 or 12 minutes to cook, and then I'm going to put into it an Indian curry. I prepared that brown rice before I came up, put it in the jar with a tablespoon of rice bran oil and half a teaspoon of salt, so that I don't have to bring those extra ingredients with me and I'm dirtying less pots. See the shadow climbing up the hillside across the valley? That's the shadow of the trees and the hill behind me. So the sun's going down. It'll only be about an hour and it'll be dark. So I need to get this cooked, get myself fed. Well, the rice is boiling merrily now, so let's have a look at this knife of mine. This is the knife that I made out of a 1955 Morris Minor leaf spring. The handle's made out of a 40-year-old piece of Queeler decking that I ripped up when my mate put a new deck down. I made this in a previous video about 3 weeks ago, and as I was making it, I decided that I liked the curve of the leaf spring. It just sits nicely in my hand and I do feel comfortable. There's been no reason where I've ever wished that I'd made it straight. I do quite like the curved blade, but as you can see, it's about 4mm thick. It's a heavy blade. The colours are starting to run in the sky now, and the shadows are softening. You can see how the shadows nearly reach the other side, which means that in about 20 minutes to half an hour, it'll be dark. I've got holes in my rice, but not to worry, that's a good thing. When you're an experienced rice cooker, you'll know that holes in your rice mean that it's almost ready. So now I can tip in my butter chicken without the chicken. It's a vegetarian butter chicken. Rather nice. I eat these things whenever I'm away by myself and I don't need to be bothered cooking. You can cook them in the pouch like this, just warm them through if you don't like your rice and your curry mixed. But what I do is I cut it open and just pour it all in. Well, it's basically cooked now, but I will just show you one thing. See how it's still just bubbling very quietly? It's not actually burning anything. Down here we've just got the ember bed and the heat that's held within the chimney because this thing's insulated, and that's enough to just finish off the cooking. But if I want to just warm it up a little bit extra for some reason, I'll just push these remainders of sticks in, and within seconds you'll see it burst into life and give me an extra burst of heat, just like a rocket. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, poof, and it bursts back into flame again. And then I pull the sticks out again and watch the colour. Watch the colour of the chimney. Just dies away. See how it's losing heat? And you can just quieten it right down again. And then I push them in again. And the heat starts to come back again. About another 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're back up to full heat again. It really is like having a pet dragon. Rightio, dinner time. And then, just like that, it was bedtime. Well, I didn't expect this. It's 9:45 and the moon is rising directly out from where I'm camping, which is beautiful. Let's check back in 5 minutes and we'll see where we're at. This camera just can't do it justice. It's huge, it's beautiful, it's clear, but this camera just can't show it. What a shame. But this is why I'm here. It's solstice and it's new beginnings. In the morning we're going to wake up to a new world. Good morning, campers. Well, here we are, solstice morning. It's about 5 AM, I'm not dead sure of the exact time, but look at that sky. It's just gorgeous. And the reason I'm here is to contemplate and meditate and just think about my higher self and being the best that I can be, and thinking about the people who run this planet, and if they don't start to get their shit together, what we're going to have to do to start running it for ourselves.
Which is what every cell in the body anchors down into.
Yay!
And really what connects.
Well, it's now tomorrow. It's actually about lunchtime tomorrow. I've been up and had some breakfast and had a snooze and listened to some inspirational lectures. Yeah, I know. But I can, up here, I can get away from the traffic noise and the noise of neighbours and interruptions, and I can just meditate on my higher self, meditate on healing this planet. I'm listening to Dr. Beth McDougall talking about water as an ancient technology. Very interesting.
We are like a liquid crystal. And so you know how I was so excited about the biofield? A luminous biofield really is an amplifying conduit.
Better not listen to too much in case I get a strike for listening to somebody else's videos on my videos.
It's a conduit between the fields in our biology via...
Well, I've made it back out to the main track. This steep drop down the hill was insane, and I've snapped off my mirror on a tree. I'm going to go back and get it, and hopefully I can glue it on. I don't think it's going to be very successful, but yeah, this was nuts coming down here. See if I can get it to go back on. Bit of diff scraping. Wow, what a trip. Right, hard left turn and back out onto the main track. Yeah, here we go. Oh, I've got to get through that bog hole. I better go down here and have a look before I attempt to cross it. Oh, nice and dry, I think. Totally dry. If I can just get through the second one, I'm home and hosed. Let's go and have a look at it. Sharp climb out of it, and it's wet in the bottom. I don't know if I'm game for this by myself. Nah, I'm not going to get up there. So I've got to turn around and find another way out.